Imagine marble streets shining under the glow of torchlight, fountains splash in city squares, markets overflow with spices, silk and wine. Laughter drifts from taverns, children chase one another through narrow alleys, and legionnaires march proudly in gleaming armor. This is Rome. Eternal, unstoppable, an empire that stretches across 3 continents. From the cold rivers of Germania to the deserts of Egypt, Rome rules the world. And here in the heart of the empire, it feels as though nothing could ever bring it down. But listen closer. The markets are quieter tonight. The laughter is softer. Somewhere hidden beneath the life of the city, another sound is spreading. Coughing. A faint rasp in the darkness. Tomorrow that sound will echo through every home, every bathhouse, every crowded street. The Romans do not yet know it. But an enemy has already arrived. Not an army. Not a rebellion. Something far smaller. Something carried in the breath of their own soldiers. An invisible shadow. That will bring the empire to its knees. It begins far away on the empire's eastern frontier. Roman legions march home from distant wars in Parthia, their victories heavy with treasure and captives. But among the spoils they carry something else. At first it was only a fever. One soldier shivers, another coughs. The commanders dismiss it. Just exhaustion from the campaign, a passing sickness. But the sickness does not pass. In camp after camp, men collapse in their tents, sweat soaking their armor, breath rattling in their throats. Picture a centurion hardened by years of war. He has faced arrows, blades, and ambushes without fear. But now he lies on the ground trembling, too weak to lift his sword. His comrades step back not from cowardice but from dread. When the soldiers return to the empire, the disease marches with them. And like a new legion, it conquers every province it touches. The empire's roads, once symbols of Roman glory, become veins pumping sickness across the land. The ships that carry grain and wine now carry death. And in the markets of Rome the whispers begin. At first families believe it is a punishment from the gods. They pray, they sacrifice, they beg the priests for answers. But the gods remain silent. Then the symptoms grow crueler. Fever that burns like fire. A cough that shakes the body until blood spills from the lips. Sores that rise on the skin, blackened and filled with pus. Imagine a mother holding her child as the rash spreads across their tiny body. She whispers lullabies, but within days the crying stops. Her neighbors will not help her bury the child. They are too afraid to touch the body. Rome, once the loudest city in the world, begins to fall silent. Shops close their doors, taverns empty, bathhouses, once filled with gossip and laughter, echo only with the coughs of the dying. The funerals come faster than the pyres can burn. By night, smoke rolls through the streets as bodies are piled high, flames devouring them one after another. And still the corpses multiply. Families abandon their sick. Children are left alone in houses of the dead. Priests choke on incense as temples overflow not with prayers, but with death. And Galen, the empire's most famous physician, flees the city. Even the greatest doctor of Rome admits defeat. His remedies of herbs and oils cannot stop what is coming. Rome has faced rebellions, invasions, civil wars, but never this. An enemy no army can fight, no emperor can command, no god seems willing to stop. Ancient writers record the horror with trembling hands. At the height of the plague, 5,000 people die in Rome. Every single day, picture it. In the morning, a baker kneads dough for his neighbors. By evening, his shop is shuttered, his family already carried to the pyre. The empire begins to bleed people faster than it can bury them. The streets stink of smoke and rot. Entire villages vanish, left empty as weeds grow over their walls. Fields lie untended. Harvests rot where they stand. And famine marches hand in hand with disease. The legions, Rome's pride, its steel backbone, are gutted. Marching orders arrive, but no soldiers remain to carry them out. Armies crumble before they ever see battle. At the borders, Rome's enemies watch. Germanic tribes press against the Rhine. Persians raid across the east. The empire, once unshakable, suddenly looks vulnerable. Not even emperors are spared. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, the last of the 5 good emperors, falls to the plague. His death is more than the loss of a ruler. It is a symbol. No wisdom, no wealth, no crown can protect against this shadow. By the time the plague has passed, some say 1/4 of Rome's people are gone. Others whisper half. And though the empire survives, it is a different empire than before. The plague leaves scars deeper than mass graves. With millions gone, fields go unplowed. The grain that once fed the cities rots in the soil. Merchants fear to travel. Trade routes fall silent. Cities that once overflowed with goods starve in their abundance of nothing. Picture a market square. Where once there were figs, olives, and amphorae of wine, now only a handful of merchants linger. Their voices echo against empty stalls. The military, the hammer of Rome, is shattered. Legions that once crushed kingdoms now stagger, half empty, their banners carried by boys and old men. The frontier grows weaker, the empire harder to defend. But the deepest wound is spiritual. The old gods are silent. Jupiter, Mars, Apollo, none save the dying. Their temples are filled not with prayers but with corpses. The Roman people begin to wonder, if the gods will not protect us, who will? In the silence of Rome's abandoned temples, a new voice begins to rise. The plague has humbled the empire and shattered faith in Jupiter, Mars, and Apollo. But while the old gods lie silent, a strange faith grows stronger. Christianity. Christians do not flee the sick. They nurse the dying, even strangers, believing every life sacred. Where Roman priests offered incense to gods that did not answer, Christian hands carried water, bread, and comfort. For many, this mercy was more powerful than the empire's armies. And in the shadows of plague, an unstoppable transformation began. Rome was no longer the empire of gods and emperors, but on its way to becoming the empire of the cross. For centuries, scholars argued, what was the Antonine Plague? Some said smallpox, others thought measles. Descriptions tell of fevers, blackened skin, and coughing blood. Whatever it was, it killed not just the weak but the strong. Soldiers, nobles, even emperors. This was not a sickness that spared anyone. The Antonine Plague was more than a disease. It was an invisible conqueror, a shadow darker than Rome's enemies, one that no army could defeat. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, the last of the 5 good emperors, faced Rome's darkest trial. He had ruled with wisdom, guided by philosophy, and carried the burden of empire on his shoulders. But even he could not escape the plague. The shadow that swept across Rome finally reached the emperor himself. When Marcus Aurelius died, it was more than the loss of a ruler. It marked the end of Rome's golden age. The empire survived, yes, but it was weaker, scarred, and forever changed. The plague leaves scars deeper than mass graves. With millions gone, fields go unplowed. The grain that once fed the cities rots in the soil. Merchants fear to travel. Trade routes fall silent. Cities that once overflowed with goods starve in their abundance of nothing. Picture a market square. Where once there were figs, olives, and amphorae of wine, now only a handful of merchants linger. Their voices echo against empty stalls. The military, the hammer of Rome, is shattered. Legions that once crushed kingdoms now stagger, half empty, their banners carried by boys and old men. The frontier grows weaker, the empire harder to defend. But the deepest wound is spiritual. The old gods are silent. Jupiter, Mars, Apollo, none save the dying. Their temples are filled not with prayers but with corpses. The Roman people begin to wonder, if the gods will not protect us, who will? Whispers spread of new gods, mystery cults, Eastern deities, and slowly, a strange new faith, Christianity, begins to grow. It promises hope, salvation, and eternal life beyond the grave. To a people surrounded by death, its message is irresistible. The plague does not destroy Rome in a single blow, but it weakens it, fractures it, changes it. The empire that rises after the sickness is not the same as the empire that went before. What was this plague? Even today we cannot be certain. The physician Galen described fevers, diarrhea, rashes, sores that blackened the body. Victims coughed blood, some went blind, most died within days. Historians debate. Some believe it was smallpox, ruthless and scarring, striking a population with no immunity. Others argue it was measles, just as deadly in a world unprepared. And some whisper of something else, something darker, an ancient disease lost to history, vanished as suddenly as it appeared. But whatever it was, its impact was undeniable. This was not a passing sickness. It was a pandemic, one of the first recorded in human history. A single invisible enemy carried on the very ships, roads, and soldiers that made Rome strong. The disease has no name in Roman memory, but its shadow is carved into the empire's fate. Rome had survived assassins, conspiracies, and endless wars. It had outlasted rebel kings, barbarian invasions and mad emperors. But when the plague came, no legion could march against it. No emperor could command it. And no god answered their cries. The mightiest empire in history was brought to its knees, not by armies at its gates, but by something too small to see. Something carried in the breath of its own soldiers. The plague left scars that never healed, crippling Rome's economy, hollowing its armies, shaking its faith. And it proved that even the greatest empire the world had ever seen could be undone, not by steel or fire, but by silence, by sickness, by the unseen hand of disease. So remember this as you drift into sleep. Sometimes the deadliest battles in history were fought without a single sword being drawn. Rome was not the only empire humbled by shadows. Again and again across history, the invisible has decided the fate of kings and kingdoms. If you want to keep walking these forgotten roads, through the secrets, scandals, and dark truths that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe. And when you're ready, follow me into the next story, because history's greatest stories aren't always about the battles men chose to fight, but the struggles they could never escape.